Hello everyone, and welcome back to Seriously. What if I told you humanity's collapse has been calculated? What would you do? Give up, run, or spend your entire life building something that might survive the fall? The story of Foundation begins with a plan to save humanity from its own collapse. Across centuries, worlds, and impossible odds, that plan continues to fight for survival. Loosely based on Isaac Asimov's Foundation series, this adaptation takes us from grand palaces to dying worlds, from a vault that defies death to a robot who knows too much, from rebels on the edge of the galaxy to rulers drowning in their own perfection. Across centuries, planets rise and crumble. It's a lot to take in, but don't worry, because we're breaking it all down for you. So grab your seat, ready your mind, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button because you're going to want to follow along for this one. Now let's dive into 3 seasons of Foundation. In the vast galaxy, the Empire rules for 12,000 years through the genetic dynasty of the Cleons Dawn, Day, and Dusk. Each is called Empire because they are clones of the founder, Cleon O'Hars. Residing on Trantor, Dawn refers to the youngest Cleon, Day is the middle-aged Cleon, and Dusk is the oldest Cleon. A young mathematician named Gaal Dornick arrives to meet the legendary Hari Seldon. She just solved the complex mathematical problem, the Abraxas conjecture, using Kala's 9th proof of folding. Gaal hopes for a good new life. Instead, she gets arrested for being involved with Hari. It turns out that Hari's theory of psychohistory, which heavily relies on calculations, predicts the Empire's fall within 500 years. This shakes the ruling Cleons, who see it as heresy. During the tribunal, Gaal checks Hari's computation through his prime radiant and confirms Hari's prophecy. Suddenly, a massive terrorist attack destroys Trantor's star bridge. The unexpected attack makes the Cleons wonder if there's any truth in Hari's prediction. So, instead of executing them, the Empire exiles Hari and his followers to Terminus, on the edge of space, the Outer Reach. Tasked with building Foundation, they must preserve human knowledge and help shorten the 30,000 years of ruin to 1,000 years. On Trantor, Day unleashes brutal retaliation on Anacreon and Thespins. Based on evidence, the 2 Starbridge bombers originated from those planets. Knowing this, Day commands the attack on their planets and leads the execution of their envoys. Meanwhile, on a slow ship bound for Terminus, Hari and his Foundation crew spend years preparing for life on the remote planet. There, Gaal grows closer to Hari's closest aide, Rach. Though their relationship deepens, it's unsuitable to build a family in space. So they choose to store their zygote in the ship's seed bank. In their closeness, Gaal reveals that Hari's calculations didn't entirely solve the problem. One night, Gaal feels something wrong during her swim and unexpectedly stumbles upon the scene of Rach fatally stabbing Hari. In a state of shock and confusion, Rach forces Gaal into an escape pod. He tells her he loves her as he launches the pod into space. Soon, 19 years have passed since the Star Bridge's destruction. Dusk faces his own ascension, becoming darkness on the predetermined date of his death. Handing his power, Day becomes Dusk, Dawn becomes Day, and the next baby clone becomes Dawn, taking his place in the cycle of their dynasty. On Outer Reach, the remaining Foundation's colony soon reaches Terminus. The settlers discover the mysterious vault, an alien-like structure with a null field that knocks out anyone who comes near. Over time, the mythic relic becomes part of their landscape. Years later, Salvor Hardin grows up as the Warden of Terminus. Seemingly perfect for the job, she's an outlier who can get close to the vault without losing consciousness. During her daily patrol, Salvor notices the vault's null field dangerously expanding. While investigating, she's haunted by strange visions, leading her to find an Anacreon ship orbiting nearby. Warning the rest, they prepare for battle while failing to contact the Empire. Meanwhile, Salvor's mother shows her the Prime Radiant, hoping it will trigger something in Salvor. However, Salvor's unable to make any sense of it. The following day, Salvor gets another strange vision of the running boy. This time, he leads her to an injured bishop's claw and a group of Anacreons. On Trantor, each empire has a bracelet that can cast a protective field called Aura. Out of nowhere, Dawn dangerously leaps and his aura saves him. The gardener, Azura, witnesses this and quickly flees. This sparks Dawn's curiosity about Azura, making him captivated. Meanwhile, religious tension brews across the Empire after the death of the luminous leader, Proxima Opal. It further escalates when leader candidate Zephyr Halima challenges imperial authority. Defying tradition, Day decides to attend the funeral himself. With Day gone, Dusk takes command in sending a force to Terminus to check the cut-off communications. Returning to Terminus, Salvor is captured by Farah, leader of an Anacreon group posing as scrappers. Salvor cleverly leads Farah into the vault's null field, turning the tables and taking Farah prisoner. However, Salvor must quickly move as the Anacreons surround the settlement. Elsewhere, Gaal remains in cryosleep as she reaches her destination. Soon, Gaal awakens aboard the ship. Raven, exploring the ship, she learns that 35 years have passed since Rach ended Hari, and right after the incident, Rach was executed. Meanwhile, the forces Dusk sent to Terminus arrive. With Salvor taking care of the problem outside, the Foundation's leaders ignore Salvor's warnings and move Farah to the tower. There, Farah manages to disable the city's protective shield, aiding the Anacreons to storm the Foundation. At the same time, they shoot down the nearby Imperial ship. Meanwhile, Day travels to Maiden for Proxima Opal's funeral and to confront Halima's growing power. With Demerzel by his side, Day navigates the Faith's politics. On Trantor, Dawn grows close to Azura, who learns his secret that he's genetically different from his predecessors. Among the Cleons, only he is colorblind. On Terminus, the commander sent by Dusk survives the attack but is taken captive by the Anacreons. Farah's true plan becomes clear. She intends to rebuild the Invictus, an old Imperial starship capable of jumping through space. Salvor, accompanied by her father Abbas and her lover Hugo, plots to destroy the enemy ships. Amidst the enemies, Salvor experiences haunting visions of Hari's death, revealing that Hari forced Rach into it for the Foundation's sake. Seeing his daughter incapacitated, Abbas destroys the Anacreon ships himself. However, its success cost him his life. Hugo's ship, the Beggar, is the remaining functional ship in Terminus. He quickly transfers its operational authority to Salvor and locks it. Now unchangeable, Farah is forced to bring them along to fix the Invictus. Upon reaching their destination, Salvor and Hugo learn from the captured Imperial commander that they can send a signal if they get into a dispatch capsule on the Invictus. As they board the jump ship, Hugo can't land on Invictus and flies into space. And once the Imperial commander opens the ship, the Anacreons end him. Inside Invictus, its crew is long dead, and its system counts down to a random space jump. They only have a few hours left to seize control before it jumps. On the Maiden, Day confronts Halima. Her conviction that the genetic dynasty defies nature shakes him deeply, driving him to prove his worth by walking the Luminists' perilous act of faith, their sacred spiral. Meanwhile, on Trantor, Dawn grows more entangled with Azura, who urges him to flee his royal cage. Returning to the Raven, Gaal activates a digital echo of Hari, who apparently digitized his consciousness to guide the Foundation. Together, they unravel the truth behind his death, how Rach knew all of Hari's plan and her unexpected role in it. As it happens, Gaal possesses a mysterious power that enables her to sense the future. However, Hari grows wary of its implications. He tells Gaal he's there to create the second Foundation, refusing to share more. Fed up with Hari's secrets, she decides to leave the same way she got there. As she does, Gaal takes the knife that Rach left with her, the same knife where Hari's consciousness is. This time, Gaal chooses to return to her home planet, Synax, and enters cryosleep, which will last 138 years. On the Maiden, Day walks the spiral, confronting both physical trial and spiritual truth. At the end of the journey, he claims to have seen a three-petaled flower. Deeming this holy, Day gains the Luminists' loyalty. However, the truth is, Day didn't experience any vision. In Invictus, the Anacreons force Salvor and the rest toward the ship's bridge. Leading the others, Salvor outsmarts the Anacreons, but only she and the Foundation's leader, Lewis, survive. They manage to lock out the Anacreons from the bridge just when the ship powers up for its next unpredictable space jump. To navigate, one of them must sacrifice to get home to Terminus. Salvor decides to do it, but chaos resumes when the Anacreons infiltrate the bridge and Thespin forces attack the ship. Salvor realizes Hugo made it and got help. With no time to waste, Salvor fights the Anacreons just when the ship jumps into space. The space jump lands them near Terminus. Lewis sacrifices his life to bring them home, while the remaining Anacreons lie unconscious. When Salvor contacts Terminus, silence greets her. Determining that the null field has enveloped Terminus, Salvor goes there to deal with it. On Trantor, Dawn and Azura plan his escape. When Dusk's mural reveals hidden raptors, Dawn realizes his genetic difference has been discovered. Fleeing through the palace's tunnels, he reunites with Azura only to uncover her betrayal. Everything has been planned long ago. Outsiders have created a clone who tries to take Dawn's identity, but Dusk is aware of everything. With his authority, the outsider clone is finished, leaving Dawn's future in the hands of Day. Returning to Terminus, Salvor heads to the vault and recalls how to activate the Prime Radiant. As if peeking into the past, she sees how Gaal did it. Salvor then activates the Prime Radiant, making the vault change form and drop to the ground. The null field deactivates, and the people regain consciousness. However, various forces of Terminus, Anacreon, and Thespis soon converge as they fight one another. Salvor tries to end things peacefully, but meets resistance. Before it further escalates, Hari suddenly emerges from the vault. Hari reveals that the centuries-long feud between Outer Reach planets was a scheme by Cleon II to divide them. He urges the three worlds to unite against the Empire, revealing that the Foundation's true purpose was to create a new civilization. After cleverly instructing how to escape the Empire's control, Hari motivates them to work together before returning to the vault, shifting it back to its original state. On Trantor, Day returns and confronts Dawn. Despite what happened, Day plans to pardon him. However, Demerzel suddenly ends Dawn, claiming herself loyal to the Cleonic dynasty above all. Later, Day discovers that the original and the succeeding clones are already adulterated. Back on Terminus, they free themselves from the Empire's control. Rebuilding and finding common ground for the three nations took time, but they pulled it off. However, Salvor still feels lost in her own identity. When she visits the vault, she sees a vision of a young girl diving to the ground as if it were water. As Salvor seeks answers, her mother reveals that Salvor was chosen from the seed bank and that she is actually Gaal and Rach's child. Upon learning the truth, Salvor decides to search for Gaal, even if it means leaving everything else behind. Understanding this, her mother gives her the Prime Radiant and instructs her to deliver it to Gaal. Soon, 138 years pass by, and Gaal finally returns to Synax. Though everything she knew didn't exist anymore, hope isn't lost. Beneath the ocean, Gaal finds and saves someone from cryosleep. The first season of Foundation ends with Gaal finally meeting her daughter, Salvor, and getting back the Prime Radiant. Season 2 begins with Hari Seldon ranting in darkness, reflecting on Gaal, Rach, and his own mistakes. Soon, he sees his life mate, Yana, but realizes it's not truly her. Instead, it is Kale, the author of the 9th proof of folding. With that, he finally understands that he's now trapped in the Prime Radiant. On Synax, Gaal discovers that Salvor was born from the zygote placed aboard the ship heading for Terminus decades prior. They discuss their unusual connections of how Gaal can see the future while Salvor can perceive the past. Trying to bridge the time between them, they discuss the two Haris. One is stuck in the Prime Radiant, and the other dwells in the vault in Terminus. On Trantor, the current Day survives an assassination attempt. Suspecting everyone around him, he believes it is connected with his intention to marry Queen Sareth of Cloud Dominion. However, the Empire soon discovers the brewing alliance at the Outer Reach led by those claiming to be magicians, and suspects it's connected to the Foundation. On Terminus, the Foundation flourishes. When alarms sound for the first time in over a century, the vault awakens, signaling the coming of a new crisis. Back in Synax, Gaal and Salvor almost lose their life in making Salvor's ship work again. Inside the Prime Radiant, Hari escapes his digital prison with Kale's hints. Before parting, Kale tells him to meet her in Una's world. Now aboard the ship Beggar, Gaal and Salvor restart the ship when Hari appears and confronts Gaal. He lashes out at her for trapping his mind during her cryosleep, arguing that the Foundation faces the second crisis exactly because the second Foundation was never built. Despite the argument, Hari helps them escape the massive storm in Synax. On Trantor, Day gives his fiancée, Sareth, a tour of their cloning facility. Sareth suddenly confronts Day about the assassination attempt. Wary, Day realizes the corruption runs deeper than he imagined. Elsewhere, Clarice, Constant, and Polly pose as magicians preaching Hari's message on Sawena. When things go south, they quickly escape and return to Terminus. On Terminus, the vault opens and the current warden approaches. Surprisingly, he is lifted into the air and destroyed. Right after, the vault closes, and the name Hober Mallow appears at its surface. Meanwhile, Gaal delves deeper into her visions, revealing the telepathic tyrant, the Mule, who seeks Gaal's warriors, the Mentalics, and the Second Foundation. Returning to the present, they determine that their next destination is Ignis. However, Gaal later reveals there's more to the vision. In it, Salvor is dead. As they travel, Hari diverts the ship to Una's world, claiming the Prime Radiant demanded it. He makes Gaal bring him to the ruins using the Prime Radiant. Upon reaching their destination, they meet Kale, but Gaal's left out of whatever Hari and Kale are planning. On Terminus, Polly convinces Constance's father, Director Cermak, to bring Hober Mallow to the vault, believing it's part of Seldon's plan. At a prison colony, Belriosa meets Demerzel, who tempts him back into service by revealing his husband, Glawin, is alive. Hearing this, Bel reluctantly accepts and takes their orders. Soon, Bel and his team head out for their mission. On Corel, we finally meet Hober Mallow, who cons and steals from Commodore Argo using a castling device. Upon capture, he's quickly led to his execution, where Polly and Constant arrive. Despite Hober's situation, he cleverly saves himself by swapping places with Argo mid-execution. He, Polly, and Constant quickly make their escape using the cleric's ship, heading straight back to Terminus despite Hober's disagreement. On Una's world, Gaal and Salvor are about to leave after waiting for a long time. As they do so, they suddenly detect a life form from the ruins and find Hari with a physical body. After rescuing Hari, who's also confused, they quickly escape the planet. Or elsewhere, Polly, Constant, and Hober arrive on Terminus. When Hober gets forced inside the vault, his name disappears from its surface. Polly, Constant, and Director Cermak follow inside, where time shifts differently. They soon meet Hari, who explains the Foundation must prevent war and shows them the Prime Radiant. He then assigns Polly and Constant to negotiate peace with the Empire and privately gives Hober a secret task. On Trantor, Sareth secretly investigates her family's deaths, questioning Dawn of the Cleon's involvement. Meanwhile, her trusted servant, Rue, reconnects with Dusk, both drawn to memories of their past. Meanwhile, Bell and Glawen travel to Sowena to meet Dusembar, who reveals footage of Constant and Polly preaching, using advanced technology tied to the Foundation. Elsewhere, Hari dreams of Rach, as if haunting him. When Hari wakes, Gaal and Salvor question his new body. As they approach Ignis, their ship crashes, and Salvor heads into the jungle, only to find her lover, Hugo, alive. Seeing Salvor return with someone, Hari makes Gaal hide the Prime Radiant. Soon, they learn that the person with Salvor is an imposter. Stunned, they are all captured. On Trantor, Sareth explores Day's chambers on the pretense of intimacy, but tense accusations surface. Once Sareth leaves, Demerzel appears, assuring Day that no trace of Sareth's family's death leads back to them. However, Sareth manages to retrieve a visual copy of the attempted assassination on Day, learning that Demerzel is a robot. Meanwhile, Dawn and Dusk investigate on their own, discussing how a green mark on the neck symbolizes a traitor. On Ignis, Hari, Gaal, and Salvor awaken free but surrounded by telepaths led by Telem Bond. Telem reveals they've entered a sanctuary for the Mentaliques are sighted. Unknown to them, her true goal is to destroy the Prime Radiant and avoid the creation of the Second Foundation. And elsewhere, Hober Mallow jumps to the coordinates Hari told him and encounters a massive spacer ship. On Trantor, Polly and Constant arrive as envoys from the Outer Reach, but their mission draws the Empire's attention, leading to their arrest. Back on Ignis, Salvor meets Josiah, who shows her how Mentalics communicate through unvoicing and shares visions of how Telem rescued them. Later, Telem reveals her knowledge of the Foundation and the coming crises. Upon learning that Gaal can see the future, Telem offers to train her and create a second Foundation without Hari. Meanwhile, Hari and Salvor discuss the second and third crises. As they talk, Salvor figures out that the Prime Radiant and the Vault are connected. Hari doesn't deny this, clarifying that there is only one Prime Radiant, and what Hari from the Vault has is a duplicate. Soon, Telem isolates Hari. She makes Gaal and Salvor believe he left them using an illusion. Unknown to them, Telem has Hari captured and commands his end by drowning. With Hari gone, Salvor grows uneasy, while Gaal falls under Telem's influence, sharing her own experience with everyone. Later, Salvor sneaks around and finds Hari's body. However, Telem sees her and knocks her out. Meanwhile, on Trantor, Sareth confronts Demerzel. However, Demerzel warns and hints at her involvement in Sareth's family's death. When Sareth meets with Day, he confirms that he's behind it. Feeling cornered, Sareth turns to Dawn. In a secret meeting, Sareth shares her discovery. Wanting to bear Dawn's child instead, they deepen their connection. Elsewhere, Hober proposes an alliance with the Spacers, but she is Senner, the leader of the Spacers' home swarm, betrays him to Bell. When Hober cleverly escapes, Bell warns Day about the Foundation's superior technology. On Trantor, the Empire finally meets the clerics. There, Hari's projection appears through Constant. Day orders an assault on Terminus, but Hari's projection declares the Foundation will win. Constant is electrocuted, removing Hari's presence in Trantor. Condemning Polly and Constant as traitors, the Empire broadcasts their public execution. Just before Constant's actual execution, Hober arrives, creating chaos. Constant's pet, Becky, attacks Day but ends up dying, and Hober escapes with Constant while Polly stays behind. Returning to Ignis, Telem traps Gaal and Salvor, using psychic dampers to control them. Salvor activates the Prime Radiant and contacts Hari in the Vault, who learns of a second Foundation. Hari helps Salvor escape, while Salvor tells him of Hober Mallow. This information leads Hari to command the search for Hober. With Hari's advice, Salvor forces her way out of prison. However, Gaal lies incapacitated. Telem finally reveals the truth that she managed to stay alive all this time by transferring her consciousness into a younger body. And this time, Gaal is the perfect next vessel. Meanwhile, Day leaves Trantor to his brothers while he and Demerzel head to Terminus. With them gone, Sareth and Dawn get together, while Rue and Dusk uncover a secret chamber where they learn that Cleon Y's true heir and forever empress is Demerzel. In a flashback, young Cleon I discovers Demerzel imprisoned for millennia in a hidden chamber. She tells him all kinds of stories, making him obsessed with her. Years later, he frees her. In that brief moment, she could end him, but doesn't. She lets Cleon implant a control chip in her, forcing her to serve the Empire while asking for her love. With Demerzel, Cleon begins the genetic dynasty. He dies soon after, leaving her bound to the Empire. In the present, Cleon's recording reveals this to Dusk and Rue. But now that they know, they are trapped. Returning to Ignis, Salvor saves Gaal from Telem's possession. As they escape, Salvor fights one of the Mentalics physically, while Gaal mentally faces Telem. Salvor ends her foe and helps Gaal. When things seem really dire, Hari suddenly appears and finishes Telem. Elsewhere, Bel captures Hober and Constant. Soon, Day arrives at Terminus, demanding the Foundation's surrender. Hari confronts Day and Demerzel in the vault, warning that the Empire's end is inevitable. Despite Hari giving them the Prime Radiant, Day orders his army to strike. Glawen leads a squad to attack Invictus, but crashes on Terminus, surviving the fall. Day then orders Invictus to be used to destroy Terminus. Torn between duty and love, Bel says goodbye to his husband and carries out the command. Meanwhile, Demerzel detects something wrong on Trantor and quickly heads back on her own. On Trantor, Demerzel confronts Dusk and Rue. They expose her long-running manipulation of framing Sareth, hiring the Blind Angels, and steering the dynasty from the shadows. Prioritizing the Empire, Demerzel eliminates them. After Demerzel frames Sareth for the assassination, Dawn discovers the green paint marking Demerzel as a traitor. Seeing this, Dawn escapes Trantor with Sareth and their unborn child. Meanwhile, above shattered Terminus, Day orders Bel to destroy all of Foundation's allies. This time, Bel refuses, prompting Day to command the Navigator himself. However, a hidden deal with the Spacers flips the situation, engineering a fatal jump sequence. Learning this is all because of Hari's calculations and Hober's doing, Day attacks Hober. Bel finally snaps and attacks Day, leading the fight towards the ship's airlock system. Day thinks he has won until Bel switches places with Day. Using Hober's castling device, Bel sends Day drifting into space. Unable to stop the deadly jump sequence, everyone makes their peace, leaving only Constant to escape while the rest perish. Alone, Constant soon reaches a place resembling the vault. There, she learns that Terminus is sacrificed for the Foundation's survival. Now that all Cleons are gone, Demerzel replaces them while claiming control of the Prime Radiant. On Ignis, Hari and Gaal explain how their linked consciousness allowed Gaal to sense Hari's drowning, help him survive, and fake his death. When the Mentalics arrive, they bow to Hari, Gaal, and Salvor, as their thoughts are finally free from Telem. However, Telem's influence resurfaces through Josiah, and Salvor takes the deadly shot meant for Gaal. As she dies, Salvor smiles, proving that the future can be changed. Gaal and Hari share the grief of losing those they love and pull themselves together to build the second foundation. They plan to cryo-sleep through the years to teach the Mentalics about psychohistory and lead them against the Mule's distant threat. We just finished the second season and we're more than halfway in. Please don't forget to support us by liking this video and subscribing to our channel. Thanks! Now continuing to the third season of Foundation. It begins 152 years after the Second Crisis. At present, the Foundation dominates the Outer Reach, and both the Foundation and the Empire eye Calgon as a crucial planet for control. However, a powerful psychic known as the Mule conquers it by turning soldiers against each other through his mind control. On Trantor, the Cleonic dynasty weakens as Dawn assumes leadership in Day's absence. While Dawn and Dusk handle things in the Empire, Day indulges in his vices. The Cleons and Demerzel, who now hold the Prime Radiant, learn that the Empire will fall in 4 months. Meanwhile, in New Terminus, the looming Third Crisis prompts the bright Dr. Ebling Mist to null the Vault's null field. Upon meeting Hari Seldon, Ebling offers his services, but Hari merely says he gave the Prime Radiant to the Empire, leaving Ebling confused. On Haven, unrest brews among the Foundation's alliance of traitors, sparking rebellion. Han Pritcher, Foundation's captain of information, claims this is a distraction, and the bigger problem is the Mule. Defying the order of the Foundation's mayor, Indbur, to stay put, Pritcher leaves New Terminus. On Ignis, Gaal finally awakens. While to flashback to 151 years ago, Gaal and Hari awaken on Ignis to build the second Foundation under Thalas's lead. While Gaal trains the Mentalist with her psychic powers, Hari teaches psychohistory, ensuring their hidden network spreads across the galaxy. To make their plan last, they continue to cryosleep and wake up yearly for a few weeks. Still, this demands sacrifice, so Hari chooses to stay awake, devoting the rest of his life to preparing them for the coming crises. Years later, Prem Palver takes charge. Hari, now frail, entrusts Gaal with the Prime Radiant, revealing a different access to share everything he knows about the 8 crises. Soon, Hari vanishes into the unknown with Kala. With Hari gone, Gaal carries on with the help of Prem until the present, when she wakes to find the Mule's rise has shattered their plans. On Calgon, the Mule prepares to subjugate the galaxy. Elsewhere, we are introduced to Hober Mallow's descendant, Toran Mallow, who happily spends his honeymoon with his wife, Beta. However, Pritcher appears and recruits their help to investigate the Mule. On Trantor, Day rejects responsibility, while Dusk faces his looming end by secretly leading the creation of a black hole weapon that he plans to give Dawn. Though Don busily prepares for his rise as the next day, he does something entirely unexpected. Out of prying eyes, Don secretly communicates with Gaal. Flashback to 3 years prior, Don secretly studies psychohistory. Inside the Imperial Library, he asks for Kala's 9th proof of folding, which leads him to meet Gaal. Curious, Don communicates with her. There, Gaal learns that the Cleons possess the Prime Radiant. In their talk, Don insists he wants what's best for humanity, not just the dynasty. Forming a quiet alliance, they exchange encrypted messages across space. In the present, Gaal warns about the mule's growing power and urges Don to deal with Calgon. Don hesitates, but still, he does what Gaal tells him. He avoids direct contact with the mule as instructed. However, talks with the mule fail, forcing Don to act. On Calgon, Pritchard tags along behind Toran and Beta to a party where the mule is. Before Pritchard can get close, the mule invades his mind. Compromised, Pritchard quickly leaves, but Toran and Beta remain. Distracting the mule, they manage to rescue the mule's frightened musician, Magnifico, and flee. On Trantor, Day plans to escape with his lover, Song. During their walk, he reveals that Demerzel is a robot. Unknown to Day, Song makes a robot worship sign upon seeing Demerzel. At her action, Demerzel finally intervenes. Meanwhile, Demerzel privately confides to Illuminist that she's behind the Star Bridge's destruction. Though haunted by the deaths, she insists it was necessary. On Ignis, Gaal reunites with Pritchard, revealing he's actually a second Foundation Mentalic who infiltrated the first Foundation. Pritchard shares his encounter with the Mule, and Preem suspects the Mule uses music to amplify his abilities. On New Terminus, Ebling warns Mayor Inber and Quent of the Galactic Council that the Empire has the Prime Radiant. Hearing this, Quent visits Trantor. Using their friendship, she forces Dusk to show her the Prime Radiant and confirms the third crisis is 4 months away. Meanwhile, Day visits Cleon Varusha's archive and learns about the robot sympathizers who once hid within society, called Inheritance. Taking a relic from Demerzel, Day leaves Trantor with Captain Mavon's help. He then cleverly exposes Captain Mavon's betrayal, ends him, and transfers his nanites to stage his escape. Elsewhere, Dawn meets Gaal, who has a plan to fight the mule. But to make it work, Dawn must leave Trantor with her. As guards close in, they flee through the tunnels. With Gaal revealing her abilities to Dawn, they leave Trantor. Meanwhile, Day cleverly uses a disguise to slip away from the soldiers chasing him. When Demerzel discovers Day's ruse of transferring his nanites, which can betray his location, she turns her attention to Dawn. On New Terminus, Pritchard returns and is imprisoned for defying orders. Meanwhile, Beta, Toran, and Magnifico escape to Haven, seeking help from Toran's uncle, Randu Mallow, the leader of the Alliance of Traitors. Elsewhere, Gaal and Dawn travel through space. On the ship, Gaal checks on a zygote that Salvor left behind, claiming it'll be a girl. Soon, they plan to trap the mule by enforcing an enclosure on Calgon, meaning a fleet of Imperial ships will surround it. However, when the plan is underway, the mule reveals his trap. One step ahead, he takes over the Empire's jump gates and destroys Calgon. Dawn manages to escape with Gaal's help, but when he learns that the Empire's collapse is part of her elaborate plan, Dawn refuses to rejoin her. As he is about to leave, an incident flies him off into space. Meanwhile, Gaal is stunned when Demerzel boards the ship. She learns that Demerzel can't detect Dawn's nanites, claiming he's dead. Expecting a fight, Gaal shoots at Demerzel, only to discover that she's a robot. Worse, Hari knew this all along, and that Demerzel even helped by providing data for the Prime Radiant. Learning this, Gaal says she's the Foundation's backup plan and reveals everything, including her abilities to see the future. To get proof, Demerzel sees fragments of this future before collapsing from a system overload. Upon recovering, she shares one thing Gaal didn't notice in her vision. The fall in 4 months involves a black hole. Elsewhere, the mule wakes from a vision of Gaal Dornick. Consumed by obsession, he vows to find her first. Heading to Mycogen, Day finds Song and begs her to remember their past, claiming he even accepts her worshipping robots. However, Song rejects him, revealing she has a life mate all along. On New Terminus, Baita, Toran, Randu, and Magnifico arrive, convincing Inber to listen. Magnifico plays his music to prove how the mule's powers can be amplified or weakened by his instrument, prompting the Foundation and Traitors to unite. When the vault opens, they all meet Hari. However, Hari claims no knowledge of the mule. When the mule suddenly appears and turns the Foundation's fleet against itself, Hari puts up the null field, forcing everyone out of the vault. Elsewhere, Demerzel lets Gaal live. As she heads out, she detects numerous transmissions and shares that the mule is already attacking New Terminus. When the mule finally lands, Inber submits but later dies. During the chaos, Pritchard manages to escape while Toran carries his unconscious wife, Beta, to the safety of their ship. However, Randu betrays them. When a fight breaks out, Beta is taken, forcing Toran to leave on his own. At that moment, Randu dies. On Trantor, Dusk learns of the chaos and seeks solace with Quent, promising her safety. On Mycogen, Day proves himself by undergoing a hallucinatory ritual that only lets him speak the truth. After talking about everything he knows of Demerzel, he realizes how much the Cleons have wronged her. However, the inheritance leader, Sunmaster, arrives and takes over judging Day. With a robot's brazen head, Sunmaster declares it will determine Day's fate. On New Terminus, the mule finally meets Hari Seldon face to face. The mule expects to control the other, but Hari's just a projection, and this frustrates the mule. Though Hari can destroy the mule with his null field, Hari lets him go, convinced the mule holds the key to something bigger. On Mycogen, Day is chained in Sunmaster's arena to be judged. Surprisingly, Day confesses his dynasty's sins, exposing how they enslaved Demerzel. His words trigger an ancient melody that reawakens the brazen head. Recognizing the tune, Day whistles the melody Demerzel used to sing, triggering further communication from the brazen head. However, Sunmaster says it's anger and claims Day is guilty. As such, Day is dumped underground to face death. Back on Trantor, political leaders plan to surrender the Empire to the Mule, believing it's the only way to survive. However, Dusk refuses to concede. When Demerzel finally returns, she reveals that Dawn betrayed them and that the Second Foundation exists. Meanwhile, Dawn wakes aboard the Mule's ship, alive but crippled. And with him is Beta. On Ignis, Gaal returns. She instructs Preem to evacuate everyone and entrusts him with the Prime Radiant. Intending to face the Mule, she leaves for New Terminus with a small team. Reaching their destination, Gaal captures the Warden to learn where the Mule is. Using her abilities, she tries to free the Warden from the Mule's control, but it backfires. The Warden's mind shatters and she dies rather than betray the Mule. They soon find Pritcher, who leads them to a group of survivors that includes Ebling, Torin, and Magnifico. Though Magnifico's still under the Mule's sway, Gaal keeps him alive at Torin's pleading. Later, Gaal visits Hari in the vault, asking for help against the Mule, and he agrees. But, in exchange, he makes her promise him a body of his own. On Mycogen, Day wakes in a pit, but he manages to escape with Song and her life-mate's help. Driven by guilt, he confronts and ends Sunmaster, taking the brazen head with him as he leaves. On Tehran, Dusk uses Novacula, a black hole weapon that destroys the Galactic Council, the Cloud Dominion, and the Maiden, proving that no one can mess with the Empire. Demerzel, torn between duty and conscience, seeks answers from Kala through the Prime Radiant. Knowing a future where she grants the Second Foundation refuge in the Imperial Library makes her question her loyalty. Cal hints at a loophole called deferred betrayal, giving Demerzel peace of mind. Meanwhile, Dusk's death day finally arrives. Preparing for it, he becomes darkness. On that same day, Day returns to Trantor, bringing the brazen head to Demerzel. However, Demerzel can't bring herself to fix it, so it's up to Day. Unknown to them, Darkness skips his supposed end and heads straight to the clone tanks. There, he destroys everything, ending their genetic dynasty himself. During this, Quent approaches the rushing Demerzel. Unable to say much, Demerzel instructs Quent to head to the Imperial Library and return the triangular book for her. Though Quent doesn't quite understand, she listens to Demerzel's instructions. Still, Demerzel and Day arrive too late, and only a single infant survives among the clones. However, he also meets his end despite Demerzel giving up her life to save him. With Demerzel gone, Darkness seizes the Prime Radiant, ends Day, and declares himself the only ruler. Elsewhere, Gaal, Hari, and the others infiltrate New Terminus. While Hari distracts the Mule's soldiers, Gaal and the others look for the Mule. However, Pritcher goes on his own, finding Beta at Toron's request. Arriving at the office, Gaal battles the Mule, brings him within their mind, and exposes his weakness before ending him. Despite this, Gaal still feels the Mule in her head. Beta and Pritcher soon arrive, and Gaal learns the real Mule is Beta. Fighting back, Pritcher shoots her. Beta tries to convert her, but Gaal still has another trick. She has tampered with Magnifico, causing Beta to fall. Gaal manages to escape, barely rescued mid-fall by her remaining colleague. In the Imperial Library, Quent brings the book. After presenting it to the librarian, she is welcomed to the Second Foundation and introduced to Preem. Meanwhile, in Demerzel's room, the brazen head lights up, transmitting signals. Across the galaxy, the signal reaches a hidden colony where Kala resides. As it happens, the colony is on the moon, orbiting the Earth. And that's the first 3 seasons of Foundation. With Demerzel gone, an old, crazy Cleon is left. The Vault continues to live with the remaining Hari's consciousness, while Gaal still has the Mule at her back. Although the future remains undefined, Season 4 will surely bring more psychohistory and cosmic drama. So if you're hooked on this galactic meltdown, hit like, comment what you think comes next, and subscribe. See you in the next video.